We are about to spend 13 chapters on rules and regulations. Woohoo! My name is Jacob Hubbard, and this is Freedom Chapter 20, brought to you by Incarnate Ministries, based out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Pilot Point, Texas. Guys, this marks the halfway point through our exodus, through our journey toward freedom. So you guys should be feeling about half free right now, right? There's still some more you need to unlock, but in these next 20 days, I promise all the secrets of life will be revealed, and you'll be totally happy, right? I do want to spend these next 5 or 6 videos. It's going to be a mini series, and we're going to be walking through how the rules that are brought to us here in God's theophany, right, the 10 Commandments, how they actually set us free. I mentioned that in the last video, that the rules actually do set us free. And so I really want to dive into that. And rather than hearing me talk about the specific rules about like the blood sacrifices and like how the priest's vestments have to look on a Tuesday during, the 17th week of ordinary time, you know what I mean? Like, there's good there, but I think that we can do a lot more good if we have that greater contextualization and understanding of what's going on here. And so to do that, we're gonna need to bring in my true love, philosophy. All right, so we're gonna spend the next 3 videos here, this one and then 2 more, working on arguments for the existence of God. And then we're gonna spend a video after that, kind of drawing out implications from that, so that like God's characteristics based on the very fact that he exists. And then after that, we're gonna draw out what evil is. And then once we have all of that understood, we're going to bring it back to the 10 Commandments and see how the 10 Commandments are actually designed not to enslave us or ensnare us, but to set us free, because God himself is goodness and freedom, right? So this structure that we're kind of borrowing, I'm not going to claim to have done all of this on my own, right? It's from St. Thomas Aquinas' Summa contra Gentiles. It's a phenomenal work, and he begins by arguing for the existence of God, and then sussing out from that existence, begins with the existence of God, and then susses out like necessary conditions from that existence about like who God has to necessarily be from the very fact that he exists. And then from that develops what evil is, and then we're going to use that to help us understand how God's rules set us free. So that's the basic structure, right? So first, we need to prove that God exists, and we're going to borrow St. Thomas Aquinas' for our first 2 videos, his arguments called the 5 Ways, and it's from the beginning of his work, which is entitled the Summa Theologica. Those 5 ways are the argument from motion, the argument from efficient causality, the argument from contingency, the argument from degree, and then last, the argument from design. And so for this video, we're just going to go through the first 2 of those arguments, and we're going to kind of try and break them down and make them just kind of palatable, so that you guys don't have to go and study like hours and hours of philosophy in order to really understand what's going on. So we'll jump right in, and we'll begin with the argument from motion. So the argument from motion begins with this simple prompt. There is motion in the world that we observe, right? So like my hand moving right now, right? Like this Bible, right? Like I can drop it and it drops, right? Like there's motion that we observe in the world. So how does motion work? This is the second premise. Motion is the actualization of a potential. Now, those are like big words, but it's a pretty simple concept. So basically, like when something moves, it has to be capable of that motion, and then that is being brought out by something else, by a third force, right? So like my hand, for example, it's not capable of disappearing, right? Like it's not capable of flying off, but it is capable of doing this, right? Like, but it has to be brought from the potential, from the possibility of doing that, into actually doing it by me, right? So like by another cause. And so that's how all motion works. And so every single thing that is in motion has been moved by something else, right? It's been moved from potency into act by something else. And then the third premise is that this cannot go on to infinity, right? So we can't have a bunch of things that are just simply moved by something else, like, and that their cause has been moved by something else, right? So like for this book, for example, like the Bible, when I drop it, right? It's like gravity, it's been set in place by something else, and that can't stretch on to infinity because there needs to be something originally that itself was not moved that moved everything else into existence. All right, sorry it was raining, but we had to move inside, so here we are. But to summarize that argument, so basically if we see a ball like being dropped, right, or in the case that I showed the Bible, like if we see it dropping, then we know that it has a cause of its motion, right, gravity. But who put gravity in motion? Eventually there has to be something that itself was not moved that put everything else in motion, something that has to be, that is an unmoved mover, right? And so that is what we call God. So that's the first argument. Second one is the argument from efficient causality. So we'll jump into that now. Okay, this one's a little bit more challenging, but it kind of ties into the last one. So hopefully with that as a backdrop, it should be easier to understand. So the first thing we need to understand is what efficient causes are. So there are 4 types of causes, and we won't go into that, but the efficient cause is the agent of the cause. And so it's like what we typically think of often when we think of causality, right? So like, what caused a painting to be? Well, the painter. What caused a kid to be? Well, his parents, right? So those are the efficient causes. So basically everything that's in existence has been brought into existence by the efficient cause, like by an agent, right? So like me, I've been brought into existence by my parents, right? But there's no efficient cause in the world that exists eternally, right? There's a time when everything that's existed was not. Or actually for St. Thomas Aquinas, it's enough to say that there was a time when everything could not have been. But let's go with was not. So like the universe itself, there was a time when it was not, right? Like we know that the universe had a start date, and then we know that the universe right now is moving toward destruction. And scientists are theorizing about how that destruction is going to happen. But we do know that the universe, there was a time when it was not. So if there was a time when everything was not, there had to be something that brought everything into existence and into being, right? So like if we can think about this, we can think, okay, there was a time when I was not. Well, my parents brought me into existence. Well, who brought them into existence? Who brought them into existence? And that goes all the way back, and it can go back like very, very far, but it cannot go back infinitely. Because like if it went back infinitely, then it wouldn't exist at all, right? Because like there needs to be something at the very beginning that is the first efficient cause, that itself is necessary. It has to be, and it brings everything like that does not have to be into existence. And so that is what we term the first efficient cause, and that is God. So the analogy I like to use for this is a staircase, right? So all of us, we can be seen as a step on that stair. We have an efficient cause that precedes us. Everything in the world has an efficient cause that precedes it, right? But that cannot extend infinitely. We need someone that actually sustains the whole staircase as it's going, right? Like if this stair had nothing underneath it, then like it would just break through, right? Like it wouldn't have anything to sustain it. So like God is the thing that sustains all efficient causality and caused the staircase to be in the first place. So he's not like the highest step, right? Like that's kind of what the argument from motion would say. So God is like the first step. But this one is saying that he's actually so powerful that he's sustaining the whole system, and he brought everything out of nothing into something, right? And so the 2 arguments are actually tied together, and the third one's actually tied in with it as well. But there's this distinct and significant difference in that the first one attributes God with bringing everything from potency into actuality, whereas this one attributes God with bringing everything from nothing into being. So God is all powerful in that he can bring nothing, from nothing, everything, right? So those are the first 2 arguments. We'll just cover those today. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be doing 3 more next time, and then a whole other video about some other arguments. And so today's challenge is just to reflect on these arguments and see which of them is more convincing to you. And just think about if you have any questions. Again, feel free to reach out. You can reach out in the comment section or by emailing me at incarnateministriesus@gmail.com. Thank you guys. Have a great day.